Mall Santa! What's the weirdest thing a kid has asked? Viewer edition.
Story 1. This wasn't a wish story, but it's so funny I'm going to post it here next Christmas for a different Christmas video. I took my 2 kids to visit Santa. It was on a small stage in a Grang Hall area that is also having vendor sales. My son was 4 and my daughter was 6 months. My son fulfilled his wish and we were at the point of getting a picture. He didn't believe Santa, but knew what to do. My son sat on Mrs. Claus's lap as my daughter was on Santa's lap. It looked very cute, but my daughter kept looking around. Mrs. Claus tried to get my daughter to look forward using a candy cane. My son looked at her and got a very angry look. He got off her lap, placed his hands on his hips, and loudly proclaimed, "She can't eat candy canes. She's only allowed to eat mommy's milk." Everyone laughed, including me. Mrs. Claus explained what she was doing, and he apologized and sat down. The picture turned out very cute. Another story. My son is really smart. He found out about Santa at 2. My mom was the one who wanted to force the Santa idea on him, and my husband and I said when he found out, he found out. My mom took him to see Santa. It was all good. The next weekend, we walked by where another Santa was. He stopped dead in his tracks and glared at the poor man. In front of Santa, he turned to my mom and asked, "Is this Santa?" I froze. I knew my son, and that tone was the gears are turning tone. I tried to hush my mom, but she thought she knew more than me and quickly answered, "Yes." He turned, glaring at Santa again, making him nervous. My son then glared at my mom. "There's no such thing as Santa, is there?" My mom's eyes got huge. She said, "Yes, there was." My son quickly said, "This Santa is not the same Santa as before." My mom tried to backpedal by saying things like, "Santa's helpers." It was too late, and I stood behind my son so he couldn't see my face as I tried to hold back laughing. He quickly snapped, "Do you think I'm stupid?" My mom said no, and he said either she was lying or she thought he was stupid since she just said it was Santa. My son then started on how Santa was a lie and he wasn't stupid. Everything she tried to explain got shot down. After a while, she gave up and told him he was right. He gave the biggest victory smile I ever saw the whole way home as the poor Santa just sat there surprised. Luckily, there were no other kids there at the time. It was a smaller store area and we walked by during a less popular time. My mom got him to promise to never tell any of the other kids. I must say he held up his end of the deal and never told a soul, even his own sister, until she found out for herself. Easter Bunny. My son decided the Easter Bunny was also fake due to the whole Santa thing. So that picture is perfect. Easter Bunny costumes always look off, so my son did not want to sit on his lap, and instead sat on the bench beside him. It looks like 2 people waiting for the bus. My son is even looking as if he is looking down the street for it. I mean, props to your son. That sounds like a little detective. I don't know exactly what age he was when he figured all that stuff out, but that's pretty great. Maybe he wasn't as accusatory as I made him sound, but I feel like he was just like, "Santa isn't real, is he? How dare you lie to me? I've uncovered your mistruths. How dare you? How dare you?"
Story 2. I'm a male registered nurse and am fairly heavy-set with a decent beard. My staff couldn't pass up the opportunity and asked that I dress up as Santa and go around the hospital to visit the sick kids and mentally disabled patients. It was a blast, and most kids didn't even have a Christmas wish. They were just happy to see Santa on a Christmas Eve night that they couldn't be at home. As I was walking through the halls of our non-pediatric IMCU unit, a 5 to 6-year-old boy ran up to me, hugged me, and politely asked if he could tell me his Christmas wish. Obviously, I said, "Ho, ho, ho, of course." He asked that I help his mommy get better. I told him to wait 1 minute and found his mother's nurse who was about to give an antibiotic bag to his mother. The nurse said that his mom just had some mild pneumonia. I asked her if she would mind if I gave the antibiotic. I hung the bag and told the boy that I was giving her a magic potion that would help her feel better. She was discharged the next day and was able to spend Christmas Day with her family.
Well, son of a gun, if that isn't just one of the sweetest stories. I'm so glad that it had a happy ending, and it's heartbreaking if a child asks if someone's going to be okay when you don't think they will be, but yeah, you were able to give that child such a wonderful little bit of joy and spreading joys to the other kids and stuff too. That's amazing. I think I would love it if we could all kind of learn from this and do a little something like it if we can.
Story 3. This happened to my dad when he was a mall Santa for a year, 2004 or 5, and it creeped him out for the rest of his life. He passed away in 2013 of cancer, by the way. Anyway, during his time as a mall Santa, a young girl around age 9 to 11 sat on his lap. According to him, she looked like an innocent, adorable girl. But when he asked her what she wanted as a gift, she asked him to make her brother stay in his grave forever and stop coming into her room and trying to take her with him back to the graveyard almost every night. My dad was understandably weirded and creeped out, but fought through it and told her he would do what he can about that for her. She seemed relieved, thanked him, and hopped off his lap and ran over back to her parents. He assumed she might have had PTSD due to her brother being dead and her mind turned on her, or she might have just been insane and she could have just been a morbid child messing with him. He brought up that experience around every Christmas after that until he passed away. Really stuck with him. Story 4. Around the time before I was told the truth about Santa, I almost walked out of the house to the mailbox to mail a letter. My parents always did it for me, but I was getting older and thought I can do it myself, and they had to stop me for obvious reasons. Also, right after I was told the truth, I had to be told to not tell my younger cousins. But I was still young enough to ask why, since to me, I was gonna be helpful and being honest is the right thing, yada yada. It was just funny looking back and realizing my parents probably were both proud and cringing at me wanting to be such an honest person. Story 5. Not creepy, but when I was in college, I was at a Halloween house party and very drunkenly made out with a guy dressed as Santa while I was dressed as Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Later on that year, I was back at the same house and just chatting with some new people and trying to be polite. I asked their names, and the guy introduced himself and said, "It's nice to see you again, Alice." And it was only then I realized he was the Santa I made out with. He totally remembered me, and I legit had no recollection about him on account I was very drunk at the time. Whoops.
Ho, ho, ho! Of course I remember you. After all, you are on my naughty list.
Story 6. The saddest thing I saw a kid ask for happened when I took my nephew and niece to see Santa. A little girl asked for her mommy and daddy back. No, they weren't dead, they were going through a messy divorce, and the little girl was staying with her grandparents. Santa took it like a freaking champ. He said he couldn't force her mommy and daddy to be nice, but promised that if they didn't show up for Christmas and behave themselves, he'd put them on the naughty list for as long as she wanted. I never imagined a Santa would use the naughty list as an instrument of justice for a kid in a tough situation. Story 7. When I was 6, I think, it was the year my dad passed away on the 3rd of November, and we went to see Santa a few days before, and I was really sad and moody because my dad always used to take me to see Santa. I came in to visit Santa. I asked for my dad back. My mother said that he had passed away last year around Christmas time last year. He looked at me with a sweet face and said, "Now I'm not sure I can bring you that, but I hope you have a very Merry Christmas." I said, "Christmas is pointless," and with a tear running down my face. One of the elves gave me a hug while I cried my eyes out in the middle of the mall. I'm now 14, and I still feel really bad for that Santa, elf, and people in the line behind me. I stayed up all night hoping to see my dad, but he never came ever since then. Christmas was my least favorite time of year. Story 8. Oh, okay, I remember what I asked. I was about 6, and I asked for guns, ammunition, and the address of every year 4, 5, and 6 student. My parents must not have heard me over the crowd since they were in the center of a shopping center, but the elves and Santa were all horrified or just stunned because they were all silent for about 10 seconds. Then Santa, stuttering, asked why. I remember clearly what I said. I told them that those kids don't deserve to be happy, for they had taken all of mine. As I got up to leave with Mom and Dad, Santa asked my Mom and Dad if he could have a word with them. Next thing I know, I started going to therapy. My childhood involved being physically and mentally abused daily, sitting alone in my room, and never wanting to leave my room. My safe place, if you will. Story 9. Not creepy nor a mall Santa, also wasn't me. I do boffering as a hobby. I'm a part of SABO, Salon Beaufajat. Our last practice, all festival clothes were taken as armor, Santa hats and Christmas shirts, for example. So one of the guys dressed up as Santa. Two of the guys I boffed with said that some parents told them they were afraid that their kids would lose belief in Santa too early if they saw the guy dressed as Santa. To which one of the guys responded, I think they would have more belief after seeing Santa do stuff in the city like all people. Absolute legend.
I mean, yeah, I guess if you want kids to believe in Santa, one way is to just have Santa out doing normal stuff. Hell, just if someone in every town, like, dressed up as Santa, like, oh yeah, I know Santa's real. He works at the bank. He's there every time my mommy and I go in. It's kind of weird, but yeah, I guess Santa must be real.
Story 10. This year or last year, my little sister asked if Daddy can come back because our dad left us like 2 years ago, and so after we left, I said this. Sis, you know Dad will only come back if we're in Ohio. Like, just as a joke, and my sis said this. Mommy, can we go to Ohio for Christmas? And at this point, I was just dying of laughter, not able to control myself. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share with you guys, so bye. Also, this comment is all a joke. I'm not actually a horrible sister. LOL. Story 11. Not creepy, but I remember as a kid I always tried asking for a horse or a unicorn of some sort. The Santa at the time would usually say something like, oh, I don't know if I could fit something like that in a sleigh. And of course, the creative and clever me would say, no, it's easy, Santa. Hook it up with the other reindeer and have it fly with you. This would leave them stumbling around for another reason why it wouldn't work, only for me to matter-of-factly reply with a solution. Story 12. I worked as an elf assistant, and I didn't hear much. I heard a kid say, I just want to feel joy, in this plaintive voice. His parents laughed and looked so confused and surprised. Kid didn't want to sound greedy, apparently. One night we had a Grinch actor, and a 5-year-old said she didn't want to see Santa, she just wanted to reason with the Grinch. Story 13. Bro, when I was a child, there was an event where there was a Santa and elf there, and when it was my turn, I asked for a cat because my little 4-year-old self really wanted a cat, but my grandpa was allergic. They laughed at me, like genuinely laughing. It wasn't an act. They laughed at a dang 4-year-old wanting a cat of all things. I still hate them.
Yeah, like, first off, what a mean thing to do to a kid, but second off, why would it be so funny? Like, it's not that amusing. I can't, unless you were, like, farting the whole time you were asking or something. Like, why laugh at a kid going, I really want a cat for Christmas? What?
Story 14. A Santa came up to me. He knew I was too old for this, though to be fair, it was in a disabled community. I have autism. He asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I tried to tell him I'm good, but then I thought of something and told him what I wanted for Christmas wasn't legal. He was shocked, then I said it was a joke. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.